inspiration from the original teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. And today I'm still reading from Swami Kriyananda's autobiography, The Path, or The New Path as it was later named. And those chapters in particular where he shares about his life living with Paramhansa Yogananda. Today's quotation is an unusual one, and I still selected it. I've been reading out of the chapter on renunciation. He says, in the monastery, as I've mentioned earlier, the master permitted the monks and nuns no social communication with one another. When the necessities of work demanded contact between them, he counseled them not to look at one another, especially avoiding communication with the eyes. And to keep their conversation as brief and impersonal as possible. Well, it sounds like it's pretty specific to monks and nuns, but I have to say that in our society today where divorce takes place at such a high rate, a high percentage of marriages, that it's a good caution in general for keeping our energies self-contained. And so it relates not just to monks and nuns, but it also relates to married couples in terms of how we relate to other people and how to keep our relationships more impersonal. And that's a big topic in itself, but I offer it here because we can go out even a little further than that and say that magnetism is especially absorbed through the eyes. The eyes are considered the windows of the soul, and that's a truism, and I think most people understand that. And so it isn't only the people we connect with, whether we're monastic or just single or married, but it's also anything that we absorb through our eyes, the books we read, the movies we watch. All of these things can be absorbed into our being magnetically when we set eyes upon them. And so being just conscious of what we do set our eyes on when we can be so. You know, I'm thinking about the people right now in Ukraine in a war zone, and I'm sure there are horrific things that they are dealing with and are being forced to set their eyes upon, and to be conscious of that should we ever find ourselves in those kinds of situations, that we literally close our eyes and live more in our inner life, find our inner strength, and not absorb the horrific acts of violence that may be taking place around us. That's an extreme case, but I mention it because in general, if we have a policy for ourselves that when we sense that something is not good, some energy is not good to absorb into our being, then be more self-contained, live more in our inner life, and commune inwardly with God. And when we're on that level, I remember many a time walking in to have a meeting with Swami Kriyananda, and he would be going through enormous tests in that time frame, and I'd walk in and he would be composing the most astral music. He lived in that consciousness of God, and he didn't let the outward tests be absorbed into his consciousness. He wasn't in denial about them. He was fully cognizant of them, but he chose to live a life for God alone, and to live in that vibration and in that consciousness within himself. And so that's how I read this particular paragraph in the book, a very important one for our spiritual practice and for walking through the pathways of this world and being untouched by those things that will draw our consciousness down, remaining uplifted as much as we can and building that strength as a result, that inner strength. Joy to you, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Many blessings.